to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry.
We're back for our second podcast of the week. We are beginning our draft profile series where we will talk about all of the players that we think the Panthers should at least consider drafting in the first round for sure this year. We'll go through some second and third round picks as well, and then we'll have a kind of culmination show where we go through everybody and some late round flyers as well. We are kicking it off with the man who has captured the hearts and minds of the NFL world over the last week or so, Anthony Richardson, quarterback out of Florida, 6'4", 250 almost. Very similar to Cam in terms of his measurements, in terms of his combine, performance.
He's an inch smaller, like 4 pounds lighter, and 0.1 second faster on his 40 time, which is impressive. I mean, we'll get into all that, but he's a very, very close comparison to Cam Newton right now. And roughly,
he compares himself to Cam as well. I mean, he says he's a mixture of Cam and Lamar, which that's a pretty lofty comparison for yourself. But from what we've seen, athletically at least, I think he stacks up.
Athletically, yes.
Yeah. But we'll get into the rest here. But tell us a little bit about Anthony Richardson.
He was a 4-star recruit out of Gainesville, Florida. Unsurprisingly, he went to Florida University, living in Gainesville. I think he personally would have been, strung up in the streets if he did not go by his friends. There he sat his freshman year, but by the next year, he split time with Emory Jones. Last year, he ended up taking the full-time starting job and improved throughout the season. Richardson is a textbook case of a boom or bust project. He could become a faster version of Cam Newton, another great athlete who can't put it together. I don't want to compare him to it, but Jamarcus Russell's one of those great athletes who couldn't put it together. But Jamarcus Russell also had the mental, I don't want to work hard. And I don't see that in AR-15.
Yeah, I think, I wouldn't compare them, but like you said, it's not really you're comparing him to Jamarcus Russell. You're just saying Jamarcus Russell is a guy that had all the tools, couldn't put it together.
Correct.
Anthony Richardson he's interesting. He only played he only started 12 games in college his last year. Redshirt freshman. He made the all freshman team, I think, in his technically second year, but the redshirt stuff is weird in college. But he only played 7 games, didn't start any of them in his second year, but had some decent stats.
Yeah, only threw 64 passes his second year. Yeah. And Emory Jones, as much as I'm sure his family loves him and stuff, he wouldn't stack up to him. I just don't understand the coaching. I mean, I'm not a Florida fan, but why would you not want to get this, redshirt freshman more attempts so you can go in the next year with him as a bona fide star knowing the offense?
Yeah, I mean, college football is weird. Like, we see it every year. Guys that are sitting on the bench that are obviously extremely talented that just don't get the opportunity. Yeah. I mean, and that's why we see guys transfer, and Jalen Hurts transfers out of Alabama, lights it up, and is lighting it up in the NFL. I know a little bit of a different situation there, but guys who are obviously talented that should get the opportunity to continue their careers or start their careers or wherever they are, and don't for whatever reason. Yeah. It happens all the time in college football.
Tom Brady, for example, Drew Stanton, I think, was the guy who his backup, who they kept, even though Tom Brady showed a lot more promise and was winning better, was a better player in Michigan, he kept getting benched for Drew Stanton. I think that was his name. If not, someone could correct me. I can't remember the other guy's name. He ended up trying to play baseball, though.
Yeah, he played baseball, and he went back to football, and he had all kinds of stuff going on. But just look at the stats real quick for Anthony Richardson. 2020, as we mentioned, got in 3 games, 1 for 2. Nothing really to talk about there. 2021, he was in 7 games, threw 64 passes, had almost a 60% completion percentage, 529 yards, 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Also ran the ball 51 times for 401 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then 2022, he finally got to start the full season, 12 games, 53.8 completion percentage. We'll get into that in a little bit. 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Also ran for 654 yards and 9 touchdowns. So, 26 total touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Pretty good season for him. But really, the deal with him is, you're looking at potential, right?
Boomer bust.
Athleticism that he has he's a lottery ticket, right?
Yeah.
If you hit, then you're set for 10 years.
Absolutely. I mean,
but he's not a guarantee.
He is not a guarantee. I mean, you're absolutely correct with the lottery ticket, boomer bust guy. Like, he has all the tools. I mean, that's the big thing. He has all the tools. He's a big guy. He has the cannon of the arm. Like, he has all that. But then he didn't put it on film. He needs to work on the other things and stuff. It's shocking. Do you want to go ahead and start on the cons, and then we can go back to the pros? Because I think that's what I want to do this year. I want to end on a high note instead of a low note.
Real quick, let's just run through his combine results. So
my apologies.
Yeah, 4.440, 4.43, 4.44, depending on what you saw. Very fast, right?
Yeah.
1.53 second 10-yard split, ridiculous. 40.5-inch vertical is a record for quarterbacks at the combine. Just insane. Jerry texted after that. He said, "Do quarterbacks really need to jump that high?" Well, no. But it is a sign of elite athleticism.
Yes, he's an elite athlete. This guy could be a great tight end or something else if he wanted to be too. I mean, which I respectfully understand why he wants to be a quarterback. I mean,
of course, who wouldn't want to be a quarterback? And his arm, I mean, we'll talk about his strengths here in a minute, but his arm is ridiculous. So yeah, we'll start off with some of his weaknesses here. Footwork. Now, again, this is a guy that started 12 games in college.
Absolutely.
He just doesn't have a ton of experience. And I think that's going to be my number one weakness, con, area of improvement, whatever you want to call it, is he's going to have to get comfortable back there. Mm-hmm. And part of that is his footwork. His pocket presence overall really needs improvement.
Yes.
He has a difficult time identifying when he's got the ball and he's in the pocket. His timing, just in terms of getting rid of the ball, versus when to run, versus when to tuck it and take the sack, whatever the case is, he just has to get better at that. That's all things that you will get better at with time. But one of the guys that I was listening to, who was kind of breaking down some film, just mentioned that pocket presence is sometimes something that is difficult to coach. It's difficult to teach.
Yeah.
It's something that you just kind of either have or you don't. Now, you can learn ways to kind of get around that, but the elite guys, the Tom Brady's, the Pat Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning's, the guys that you consider the elite of the sport, they all have that.
Yeah.
Right? They all know when to get rid of the ball and when they have a little bit more time. So is inconsistent in accuracy. Skill position-wise at Florida, I don't think they have anybody that's going to be drafted in the NFL, so he wasn't playing with the best talent.
There was a lot of drops in Florida, I will say that, but he missed throws too, like some simple drop-off passes and stuff like that. He just threw errant balls. Again, hate to go back to this comparison, similar to the way Cam Newton did, especially at the beginning of his career. You would just be like, Cam, he was wide open. I mean...
Yeah, not again, this is a guy that's started 12 games. Timing, everything like that, it takes time to learn all that stuff. So, but yeah, he did have 53% passing is 53% passing. Like it is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it. So, but he played in the SEC, so he's playing against good defensive players every single week. So, at least he got that experience. Only one year starting, mentioned that. So I see this both ways. We have can get rattled in a game here. I think where we have seen that with him is if things don't go the way he expects them to go, because
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty good pre-snap read, right? He can identify the defense, he can see where things are,
Yes.
what things are supposed to happen. But if something breaks down or something happens that he wasn't expecting, he does get rattled. He does
Yeah.
make mistakes. That's when he makes his mistakes.
When I said get rattled, he has a problem of if things go wrong at the beginning of the game, he continues to go down. His
Mm,
trajectory goes down. It gets in his own head.
mm,
He's not like I remember. I mean, I think Cam's a great. I hate going back to Cam, but everybody knows him that's listening to this. Cam was a guy who could throw an interception, shake it off, and play the next series great.
mm. Yeah.
That is something that he needs to work on.
Yeah, and that's something again. I think that is coachable. I
I do
think
too.
that's something that can be coached. And by the way, guys, we're gonna make comparisons to Cam because this is a Panthers podcast, and this is a guy who is very favorable to Cam in his
Yeah,
comparison. He just is. So we're gonna mention Cam some. If that bothers you, then I'm sorry.
yeah.
That's just kind of the way it
And
is.
when Josh Allen was coming out, we compared him to Cam as well. I mean, because he was
Right.
very, but we know everybody here understands what Cam, was growing because, we all saw it. So
Yeah.
he's a better
Cam
comparison
didn't.
for us Panther fans than Josh Allen.
Yeah, this is what we. Yeah, we lived this.
Yeah,
We lived the Cam experience, and it didn't start off. I mean, it did start off pretty amazing in that first game, but there were growing pains with Cam
yes, yes,
for
absolutely,
sure.
and maybe he could become a Josh Allen or a little bit better runner, but you know,
Yeah,
so
and I will say that his post snap reads, the problems that he was having, they did get better as his year went on in Florida. He did show growth there,
mm-hmm.
and often, sometimes when you see this with quarterbacks, something doesn't happen. They either make bad throws to their first read or they just take off and run.
Yeah,
He was pretty decent at trying to go through his progressions when he had the time, but he often creates his own pressure, much like we saw with Baker,
yes,
where he will slide into a defender, as a defender's area, or I saw this a lot where he'll get back into his stance, 7 foot, 7 step drop, 5 step drop, whatever it is, and then he'll start climbing in the pocket, which is fine. Like that's what you want to see. But then he'll keep climbing in the
mm,
pocket, and he'll climb himself into pressure, or he'll just take off and go. And as an elite athlete, that's something they're going to have to coach out of him, is just taking off and going whenever the first read isn't there, right?
well,
So
I,
yeah.
I when we get to the pros, I will say that when he did go through his progressions, he did
Mm-hmm.
keep his eyes downfield while
Yeah.
scrambling. What I saw, so it wasn't one read, I'm gone. It was
Right.
read, read,
Right.
read, read, and I don't, I couldn't see downfield, so I don't 100% know that they weren't open,
Sure.
but I'm assuming he didn't trust the throw.
Yeah. And as we mentioned before, there were just a lot of bad throws. I think that's kind of the main con when
Mm-hmm.
you're looking at him. The one thing is that it's just really inaccurate. Made some great throws, like, don't sit here and tag us in two or three or four or five or 10 great throws he made. You have to look at all of the throws,
Yeah.
right? He can make the throws. We've seen that. But the consistency is where you become a good NFL quarterback to a great NFL quarterback.
And with that, he needs to protect the ball. That is one thing
Yeah.
he didn't do the greatest job of at Florida. He had 9 interceptions last year, which isn't bad but the accuracy in the NFL, those guys are going to take advantage of a bad thrown ball. They just are.
Yeah. I mean, 9 interceptions doesn't sound like a lot, but it's only in 12 games.
Yeah.
Like that's almost an interception a game. And that's pretty, if you're throwing an interception a game in the NFL, you're at 15, 16 interceptions. That's a lot of interceptions. So that is definitely something that he's going to have to
Yeah.
get better at. But all right, that's enough with the cons. Let's talk about
Yes.
why we're excited about Anthony Richardson.
He's a freakish athlete, man. Like
Yeah.
he is something special. Like I said, he could run out there, play tight end, and Be probably a first round pick. I don't know how good his hands are, but I'm assuming he can catch a ball pretty well. Guy is
Maybe.
just 4.4. I mean 4.4. Let's be honest. He may be a wide receiver. That's a lot faster than most of the wide receivers. I think almost all the running backs. Like it was.
Yeah.
That's
He's not as fast as Lamar, but he's faster than Cam,
yeah.
and he's bigger than Lamar. So I think he's got a really great combination of speed and size.
Oh, absolutely. Like that
Yeah.
is. Whew. He could jump out of the water too. I mean, his vert.
Yeah.
I don't know how that compares for a quarterback. It's like I said, that's just weird. But
I'd love to have that vert. I'll tell you that
yeah, I have a
much.
vert like a baby elephant.
Yeah.
His arm. He's got a cannon for an arm.
Yeah.
Again, you said there's not a throw he can't make. You're right. Like if you watch his combine, I forget where he was throwing it from, but man, he was throwing 64 yards down the field, and there was a couple that were just dropped perfectly
Yeah.
in his receiver's hands.
Yeah,
And,
he is his arm strength reminds me of Josh Allen's arm
mm-hmm.
strength. That was everybody said when he was coming out, he just has a huge arm. Uh, he reminds me a lot of Josh Allen,
Yeah,
honestly, in a lot of different ways.
and according to PFF, his best grade is on his deep
Mm.
accuracy. So take that. I mean, he has a good accurate deep ball, which is something
Something
we
we
have
haven't
not.
seen in a long time. Yeah.
DJ Moore's over there like, guys, I'm open. Hello.
Right.
I can get open. Uh, One good thing I really liked is he continued to show improvement throughout the season. He only started
Yes.
12 games, but I am looking at his PFF grades here. Like his first 3 games, it was 82, which is against the Utes, was a good team.
Hmm.
42, 42, and then it slowly starts to climb with the caveat of being Georgia, which, Georgia.
Not many people played well against Georgia.
No. So, I mean, it's impressive that he continued to grow, and it shows that he can improve. He can learn from his mistakes and everything else.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, that's something I had too. And not only did he show growth throughout the season, but even within games,
mhm.
he rarely made the same mistakes twice. I know particularly I was watching a clip where he created his own pressure early in the game, right? He dropped back and he sort of slid to the right rather than sliding up when he was where he should have. They showed the exact same play like 2, 3 times later. He didn't do that. He did the right thing. So to me, that shows that not only can he improve within the game, but he's coachable, right?
Mhm.
Someone took him aside and said, "Hey, this is what happened here. Let's not let that happen again." And he didn't let it happen again. So I like guys like that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mentioned this earlier. He keeps his eyes down the field when he's
Hmm.
scrambling, especially someone as freakish athlete at this as this is. You want a quarterback in the NFL to keep his eyes downfield. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how you make big plays.
Yeah.
In his throws, he has a quick release. Something else I really like in my quarterbacks, just because we've seen it with the long windups, especially in the NFL. You get hit so quickly, the balls pop
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
my last pro guy is a touchdown waiting to happen. I mean, running the
Yeah.
ball, throwing the ball. He can throw the ball down the length of the field. He can run the ball the length of the field. He's a nightmare if he can put it all together for defensive coordinators.
Yeah. I mean, he's got all the tools.
All the tools.
He just needs to hone it in, which is the case with a lot of guys that we see
Oh
coming
yeah.
out of college. I mean, that was the book on Pat Mahomes. That was the book on Josh Allen. Like these guys were not drafted number 1 overall. They were drafted later in the draft,
I,
or later in the top 10.
I
But
read a draft profile after the draft for Patrick
mhm,
Mahomes, and they roasted Kansas City for him. Why are you trading up to draft a project quarterback who won't be ready
yeah,
for 2, 3 years? Yeah,
yeah,
3 years.
he
He
sat a
already had
year,
an MVP and a Super Bowl ring. So
right?
I mean,
But he sat a year, which I think would be beneficial for Anthony Richardson.
I do too.
Like I think C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, probably more day one starter ready than Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson got a lot of work to do, but his ceiling is just so high. I
So
mean, if he
high.
puts it all together, it's ridiculous. Couple other notes that I had here. Um, the day he's drafted, he will be a top 5 arm in the NFL.
Oh,
Now, accuracy wise, TBD. But in terms of arm strength, he's already elite. It's already elite.
and,
Um,
and here's the thing too. I trust this coaching staff a lot more than I trusted previous regimes, including
mhm.
Ron Rivera, because they are offensive minded. They have worked with quarterbacks in the past to groom to become great, you know.
Yeah,
So
this is a great staff. Like if you're going to bring in a project like this or a prospect that needs work, then this is the kind of staff you want to bring him into.
yes,
This is the kind of staff that if anybody's going to be able to get the best out of him, I feel like it's Frank Reich and Josh McCown and all the guys that they've brought in to surround Frank Reich.
yeah,
One last thing is just a good thing about his college experience is that Florida ran. I wouldn't say they ran a pro style offense exactly, but they ran a lot of NFL type plays. Like he had 7-step drops. He wasn't just sitting in shotgun every single snap like Matt Corral or Willis last year. Um, so I think he's at least got some of that experience to bring with him. Where this is all not going to be brand new to him, right?
yeah.
He didn't run one of these gimmicky college offenses. He actually has some experience running these pro style plays. So I think that's a positive.
Yeah. No, I do too. It's very the guy is just so so good. Like he has so much talent. It's so and another good thing I know we've already kind of finished the pros
Hmm.
is everything I hear is he's got a good head on his shoulders. Seems like he
Yeah,
can
high
he
character.
high character, can work with people, you know. And that's huge.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going with coachable. I mean, a lot of guys aren't,
Yeah.
especially guys that I mean, Anthony Richardson was just ridiculous in high school, right?
Mhm.
Just athletically on a different tier than every single person he played against. These are the kind of guys that are told their whole lives how amazing and special and unique and perfect they are. That gives you a big head.
Yeah.
How can it not for a teenager? But it
I mean
seems like he's not going to be the type of guy that says, I know what I'm doing. Leave me alone.
he grew up in Gainesville. Can
Yeah,
you imagine growing I don't know if you've ever been to
right.
Gainesville, but Gainesville is not big. And he
No,
grew up there and then goes to the mecca of that town. Like everyone,
yeah.
oh man,
You hear football town, that's like football town USA. Like
yeah, like the swamp.
they love their football. Yeah, I mean Anthony Richardson, like if he can put it all together, this is a guy that you're gonna hear being talked about like Cam was talked about. Just
Mm-hmm.
how funny is to watch. Every play, like you mentioned, every play can be a touchdown from anywhere on the field,
Yep.
throwing or running. Like he creates those mismatches just like Cam did in his prime. It would be really fun to have another player like that on the Panthers.
Especially with keep going back to this offensive minded coach, man. I mean, that was
Yeah.
one thing I hated with Cam is it was just like the offense was vanilla. The offense, even when
Mm-hmm.
they did the read options, was vanilla. Like the next
Yeah.
year, people knew it was coming because they didn't tweak it, they didn't update it. It's so yeah,
Yeah. This is a staff that's, like we said, is going to get the best out of one of these rookie quarterbacks. It seems like. So why not him? I mean, let's talk about what it might take to get him because we drafted 9.
mm-hmm.
The hype surrounding Anthony Richardson right now is off the charts, right? I mean, the
I,
combine show that he put on was just ridiculous. Everybody in the NFL world is talking about him right now. Would it surprise you if the Panthers had to trade up like into the top 5 to get him?
oh, absolutely. I I really think the top three are going to be Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, and Anthony Richardson. Will
Okay.
Levis, I think, does have a chance to sneak in there just because there some people really like him.
Hmm.
I
We'll talk
we
about
haven't done
we'll talk
it,
about him soon.
but I could see a coach, like a Frank Reich or another, you know, Josh McDaniels maybe someone like that
Mhm.
that looks at him and goes, I can turn that guy into a cross between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like, so I could see someone saying that with him.
I would think every offensive minded coach in the league would want to get their hands on Anthony Richardson
Yeah,
because
I
they all think that they're going to be able to make him into the best version of himself. I think the Panthers staff has as good or a better chance of doing that than any other staff in the league.
I do too.
But yeah, I agree. I think if they want him, I don't think he'd last till 9. I think beginning of this process before the combine and everything, it seemed like he was probably going to be
Yeah,
available, maybe even outside of the top 10, maybe even in the early 20s. Now that's gone. Like he's probably a top 5 pick.
yeah. I think to get one of those three quarterbacks, you're gonna have to jump up because you're gonna have Houston want one. You're gonna want Las Vegas probably want a quarterback. You're gonna have, you know, other teams, Jets supposedly want a quarterback.
I mean, Seattle's talked about it. The
Yeah,
Falcons have talked about it. Like there's um I think the possibility of 6 of the top 8 teams
yeah.
could draft a quarterback. It would make sense for them to draft a quarterback.
And I'm at this point because we've sat here and done this over and over again. If the coaches, if the scouts, if they like one of these guys a lot, go get them.
Yeah.
Like, don't throw 4 first rounds at them, but let's go get them. Let's not play around. Go get them.
Yeah.
Go get your guy. We can sit him. I am fine being okay starting a Sam Darnold, a Jacoby Brissett most of next year. Maybe not during week 4, I'll be upset about it, but
After we're 0 and 3.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think as long as you don't have to mortgage the next 5 years worth of first round picks, which they shouldn't have to,
no,
right? It's likely going to be this year's first, probably a 24 and a 25 first, and then a few other picks thrown in. It's a lot.
it is a
If you're,
lot.
especially, if you're going to trade all the way up to 1, but they could trade to 3 and not have to give up that much. They could trade to 5 maybe and give up even less.
Yeah,
It would be a gamble, but they could. Um, so it's there's a lot of risk with drafting a guy like Anthony Richardson, especially given that you're probably gonna have to trade up to get him.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think this one's pretty quickly resolved. Would you be excited to draft this player? Yes.
Yeah, very much so. I mean,
Oh man.
we any Panthers fan should be excited to draft a guy with this type of talent and potential, given what we've gone through over the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he would. I would have so much fun in Madden playing with him, just because that. I know that's probably not what people want to think about,
No,
but
I
that's
mean, but I've heard that he is the if you made a character in Madden, if you made your quarterback in Madden, these are the types of stats that you would put into that guy. Huge arm, really fast, huge big size. He
I
is a Madden quarterback.
I could work on the accuracy in a year or two with the
Yeah, we'll
my
figure
skill
that out.
points.
We'll figure that out. You're just gonna probably drop back, tuck it, and run most of the time anyway, right? All right. I don't think we have any other of our standard questions. Anything else you wanted to mention about him?
No, I mean,
Okay.
he is such a. I wish I could look into the future and see, but I think
Yeah.
this guy could be something very special.
It's exciting to think about for sure. So every week we're gonna update our big board, right? Our MeowMix big board. Obviously, we've only talked about one guy so far, so Anthony Richardson is number one on the big board so far. But we'll update that as we go along.
And
We'll
I'll get
see
a
how long he remains in the top spot.
yeah, and I'll get a graphic worked on and have it up
Mm-hmm.
next week. I knew we're only gonna do one, so I didn't create the
Yeah,
graphic yet.
yeah. That's okay. That's okay. All right, Jerry. Well, I think that's gonna do it.
All right, we want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. If you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. By the way, Drew Stant wasn't his backup in Michigan. It was Drew Hinton. I thought about it throughout the podcast.
There you go. Well, now nobody else is listening, Jerry, so you've lost that one. That's
Hey,
okay.
it's recorded that I corrected myself.
We will be back next week with our second draft profile. We haven't decided who that's going to be yet, so maybe we'll put up a Twitter poll or something.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. It's going to be one of the top 3 other quarterbacks.
Probably Stroud or Young.
Yeah.
Most likely. So, it'll be a surprise for you guys. So, until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.